sorts of travel difficulties, but there he is.
There he is.
He's alive and well, and it is great to see you, Marcus. And obviously, this is your team, and you make your home there in Dallas, so you're very close to this. How would you describe sort of the feeling in the air for a Cowboys team that is in it, but for the grace of the Eagles and their struggles? How would you describe where they are right now?
Greeny, I think optimism. First of all, I miss my guys. I miss y'all so much. But I think optimism, man. When you think about the Cowboys and where they are positioned, we had a conversation a week ago about would Jerry make a move. And hindsight, it was smart. They're still in the number one spot in the NFC East. And thinking about this whole thing, having some optimism within myself, the Cowboys are not going to be an easy out if they sneak into the playoffs. And I think for more than anything, when you think about them going forward, if they can get better, if they can finish some of these games, if Dak takes on that personality and the rest of the team takes on that personality in which he talked about, I'm not sure if you want to face the Cowboys in the playoff, especially if you're a team that has done a tremendous job throughout the NFC to find yourself in the playoffs, and then you got to face a roster like this with the Cowboys. It may be a difficult out. The fact that they can backdoor this thing because of the NFC East being so weak, and then you deal with all of the talent that's amassed on this roster.
If you just look at the way things are shaping up right now, one of four teams figure to be going to play the NFC East champion when it's done. Whoever doesn't win the NFC North, so either Green Bay or Minnesota, or whoever doesn't win the NFC West. I mean, incredibly, San Francisco, some people think they're the best team in the entire National Football League. So if it's the 49ers that show up in Dallas that first weekend of the NFL playoffs, are they going to be looking for a new coach that following Monday?
Yeah, that'll be the last week for the Cowboys if the 49ers show up. it won't be pretty. When you look at that football team, obviously playing in those elements in Baltimore is a tough spot with how Baltimore is rolling. But San Francisco, to me, has nothing else left to prove. They can morph into what they need to morph into to play. And based on the way Dallas has been playing defense, you would give them the edge, and obviously on the other side of the ball. But like I said, G, this is the NFL. We've all been around this game for a long time. You need 3.5 hours on Sunday to be better than your opponent. And I'm not sure if there is an overall arching confidence that the Cowboys can't put together and drive home with this talent, with what they've shown us to have the ability to do, that they can't squeak out a win. But I just don't see them beating the San Francisco 49ers if that's the matchup in the first week.
Swagoo, I've got less than a minute here, but I need two answers from you. Is there any chance that Jason Garrett is their coach next year? Is there any chance that Dak Prescott isn't their quarterback next year?
No, Jason Garrett will not be their head coach next year, and Dak Prescott will be their quarterback. It'll be an interesting offseason. You got my boy D. Graziano up there to talk about contracts. I'm sure they'll get Dak done. I do not think that Jason Garrett will be the head coach for the Cowboys no matter what happens outside of a Super Bowl.
All right, yeah. I mean, Tannenbaum has already signed Dak Prescott, and he's not even working in the business anymore, but he's already trying to throw $40 million at him. All right, Swagoo, stay with us. We need you all morning long. Meanwhile, Al, let's go back to something new. They're now 9-1 this year in one-possession games. Not only the most such wins this season, but tied for the second most wins by a team in the Super Bowl era, behind only the 1978 Houston Oilers. I'm doing this from memory. I think their quarterback was Dan Pastorini. And the quarterback here, of course, is Russell Wilson. And let's talk about him, Mr. T, because all of the conversation the last few weeks has been about Lamar Jackson, and rightfully so. But you still have Russell at the top of your MVP list.
No question. He's leading the NFL in touchdown passes. And more than anything else, Greeny, it's sustainable. He has played for a long time at this level. He actually leads the NFL in slides. And why is that important? He knows how to protect himself. Lamar Jackson's obviously having a transformative year, taking nothing away from him. The question is that going to be sustainable for him? We know Russell Wilson has the formula, and this team is balanced. Brian Schottenheimer, someone I know you know as well, Greeny. He knows how to run the ball, play action. This is going to be a really hard team to beat.
Offensive coordinator there, Seattle. So let's talk a little bit about the Seahawks and sort of the bigger picture look at the NFC. Right now, they're the 2 seed in the NFC, and amazingly, San Francisco, which has lost 2 games by a combined total of 6 points, is currently in the wild card spot and would open at Dallas or Philly in the playoffs if everything held up. There's a lot of time left. But is Seattle right now, in your mind, among the teams you would pick to win the NFC?
Absolutely. The quarterback and head coach combo, they've got it. They've proven they continue to show in big games. And the reason that I would say this, or like the word I would use to describe it, is pressure. Russell Wilson applies pressure. You either apply pressure or you feel pressure. Everyone in the NFC playoffs is going to feel pressure from Russell Wilson. You talked about it, Greeny. They're 9-1 in one-score games this year when the pressure is at its highest. Russell Wilson, throughout the rest of the season and in the playoffs, is going to apply pressure all the teams that they're going to play against, because the teams are going to know that guy's been there. That guy's done it. Pete Carroll's been there with him. And so that's something that those opponents are going to feel, is the pressure that Russell Wilson and his execution are going to apply to them.
I find that interesting. What I'm seeing it for the first time on our screen. They have a 5% chance to win the Super Bowl. Our analytics say 6th best in the NFL. Just off the top of my head, Ravens, Niners, who are behind them, Patriots.
But they're in a tough division, right? I mean, so they have to get through the division first before. I mean, if they were 2 or 3 games clear of the Niners, I think that percentage chance would be a lot higher.
So they got to still fight that out.
Their road looks tougher, yeah. Look, they have an identity, right? I mean, you talk about Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator. They know what they want to do. The first 2 games last year, 2018 season, they didn't run the ball well. And then they took all their running backs. They took Rashad Penny, Chris Carson, and at the time, Mike Davis, and they sat them in a film room. Pete Carroll and Brian Schottenheimer did, and they showed them film of Marshawn Lynch tape running for the Seahawks. And they said, this is who we want to be. This is what we want you to do. And it took hold. And ever since then, Carson's been a different guy. And their run game was totally transformed last year after the first couple weeks of the season, and it's carried through to this year.
You know what I love? The organizational alignment. They go out. What's their big offseason move? They get Jason Myers, a really good kicker. That's how they want to play. They got Chris Carson, Rashad Penny. They're going to run the ball, play action. They know they're going to be in close games. They got a great kicker. And then opportunistically, they go add Javion Clowney. This team checks a lot of boxes.
And Quandre Diggs, too. Like, Quandre Diggs has
nobody knew he was even available.
He's been a big addition to that secondary as a hitter.
Someone help me. I feel like 3 or 4 weeks ago, not years, but 3 or 4 weeks ago on this show, the conversation was Russell Wilson is the MVP because he's doing it all by himself, because he has less around him than a lot of the other really good players. How did the Seahawks go from that to the conversation we're having?
Because their defense has gotten better since week 5. Yeah. They lead the NFL in takeaways, and that's because guys like Clowney, Diggs, they've added defensive pieces. They've gotten better on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think that's still true, but the one-score games, I think, reflect that. But I think, they can rely on something. Their identity, well, we've talked about the Patriots, right? They're trying to figure out who they are offensively. Seahawks are not trying to figure that out. They have a bedrock, and they know they can rely on it.
And then, go ahead.
Well, I think that they've got a really good player development program in Seattle as well. And
That's
to Mike's
true.
point, like, their players, those role players or reserve players have gotten better. Trey Flowers has gotten better. Quandre Diggs has gotten better. David Moore all those guys have gotten better throughout the season than they were in September. That matters.
And so right now, life on the line, 4th quarter in a tie game. Russell Wilson is the quarterback you're choosing.
I'll take Danger Russ over anyone. December 3rd, 2019, I'll take him right now.
Everybody agree?
Absolutely, because he can make plays with his feet, with his arm, and he's going to put his team in the best chance to win.
All right, we live in a world in which Aaron Rodgers still plays in the NFL.
I was just going to say 12 would be right there.
And Tom Brady and Drew Brees and a lot of other guys are walking right into the Hall of Fame.
Don't go there.
What about Carson Orlovsky? What about him?
Don't start getting personal here. You cannot insult Carson Wentz in front of Dan Orlovsky. There are very few hard, fast rules, but that is one of them. Okay, that's where we begin this morning with the Seahawks, a huge win on Monday night. Elle, where do we go next?
Let's keep it NFC. And even though the Cowboys hold a 1-game lead in the NFC East, they've, of course, lost 3 of their last 4 games, including a loss to New England a couple of weeks ago where they were held to just 9 points. That led at the time to Jerry Jones saying he was frustrated and disappointed, calling the loss a significant setback and blamed coaching. Things, of course, didn't get better on Turkey Day when Dallas lost at home to the Bills. Jones said after the game that while he was disgusted, he was going to be sticking with Jason Garrett. Something he also said a couple of weeks before he fired Wade Phillips. For more on the Cowboys, we welcome in our NFL insider Todd Archer into the conversation. And Todd, coming off last week's loss on Thanksgiving, what's been the mood around the Cowboys locker room?
Yeah, considering all that's been swirling around this team, losing 6 of 9, Jerry Jones's comments seemingly every day, Jason Garrett's future, it's been surprisingly good, perhaps. Ezekiel Elliott said practice on Sunday was chippy. That's a sign that the players were still all in. Talked to a couple other players. They said the same thing. Zach Martin said, look, we can still do everything we wanted to do at the start of the season when we were 3-0. Now, of course, they have Philadelphia to thank for being in the spot they're in, but they're not going to apologize for it either. And Dak Prescott said, look, talk is cheap. It's time for us to go do. And that's what they plan to do Thursday against Chicago.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Dak. How's he been handling the recent pressure surrounding the team's struggles?
Yeah, he's leading. And you talk about the top trait that he's had since he got here in 2016, and it's that guys buy in on him. He wants everybody to look at him in times like this. He wants everybody to see that he's the guy that they can turn to when times are bad. He's earned that, and that's really why he's a captain. Do you sense more guys looking at you now and looking at you to be a leader and be the...
I hope they are. I'm not sure if they are, if that's their mindset or not, but I hope they are. I'm just because of the way that I'm going to go about this. I've faced adversity a lot in my life, on and off the field, and at this moment, I'm just doubling down on myself and my teammates. I've got confidence in what I can do and what these guys around me can do, and I hope they're looking my way.
I talked to Jason Witten out of the locker room on Monday, and he said, look, we follow Dak Prescott because of his accountability, because of his positivity. All that stuff rubs off on each other. Now, well, they really just got to go win a game, right?
They certainly do. They have a good opportunity to do that. Stop me if you've heard this before. Against a Bears who on paper seem inferior to the Cowboys. Todd Archer joining us from Dallas. Greeny, let's keep the conversation going.
Yeah, thank you, Al. I want to bring our resident Cowboy into the conversation, Swagoo, Marcus Spears, who's had